Welcome to Thriving Through. Are you struggling to define exactly what makes your consulting practice unique? Do you worry about charging what you're really worth? Today's guest had the same challenges when he started his business 24 years ago. In this episode, Frank Keck shares how he built a thriving consulting practice with an impressive 95% repeat business rate by learning how to value himself, define his offerings clearly, and build a tribe of loyal clients. You'll learn practical strategies for growing your business, from offering free workshops that convert to paying clients, to embracing today's digital marketing tools, to developing the inner confidence that makes clients trust your expertise. Stay tuned for insights that could transform how you build your consulting practice. Welcome to this episode of the Thriving Through podcast. Today, it is my honor to have Frank Keck as our guest. And Frank, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, AJ. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. As you said, my name's Frank Keck. That's a lot of K's. It kind of gets stuck together there. I always joke it was buy one, get one free when my parents named me. And I'm CEO and founder of a company in Kansas City called CoreBuild. And that's exactly what we do. So we help people and organizations unlock their potential. We help to develop confident leaders, collaborative teams, and profitable organizations where people can thrive.
Okay, I like it. Tell me a little bit about your path to self-employed, to becoming a consultant, a self-employed consultant.
So my story starts back around 1988. I went to work for the Dale Carnegie organization and taught people how to win friends and influence people. And really enjoyed that, and enjoyed getting to watch people grow, and learned how to speak in public myself, and really enjoyed that. And then after I did that for a little while, I went and worked at Circuit City and a couple other jobs. And I remember thinking, I worked for another organization doing some training. And I remember thinking, well, this is great. I love it, but I don't need these people. Like, I know more than they do. And if I worked for myself, I wouldn't have to give them all the money that I'm giving them because they don't see the value in me. And so I think I can do this job better on my own. And so I really wanted to get out and help change people's lives. And so that's the reason I left, was I thought I can do this better on my own. And so that was where it all started.
Okay, and that was how many years ago?
That was in 2001. So I'm
Okay,
24 years in business now.
okay. Now, thinking back to those early years, what was the biggest challenge that you faced and how did you overcome it?
You know, I think the biggest challenge was getting my name out there and letting people know what I do. And because I have a pretty good track record. I think last we tracked, it was over 95% of the people who use us one time use us again, right? So 95% plus repeat business, which I think is pretty good, especially in the training and development industry. But it was just trying to get out there and let people know, hey, I'm alive. This is what I do. And the biggest part of that, AJ, was trying to figure out what it was I actually did. And,
Mhm.
I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a lawyer. So I couldn't say, I do this. I'm not an HR consultant. I can't say I'll help you with your HR stuff. It was kind of nebulous. And so it took me a long time to figure out, well, what is it that I actually do? And I would ask clients, well, what do you think that I do? And they said, oh, well, you're great. You really help us to grow. So they couldn't, getting people to be able to say, here's exactly how you helped us was a challenge. And so it took me a while to finally figure that out so that I could have the statement that I came up with that I shared with you earlier in the podcast. So I would say that was challenge number one. The second challenge kind of went right along with it. If you can't tell people what you do, your marketing is not going to be very effective. And so I found by going out and speaking to different organizations, so the Society of Human Resource Management, known as SHRM, I would go speak anywhere there was a SHRM chapter. The state organizations have a conference every year. In 2009, I got asked to speak at their national convention in New Orleans. And so that's really the backbone of how I got out and got to be known is you would go do a workshop, typically free, but people got to see you in action. And so it's kind of like taking a car for a test drive or, and you go to Costco and you get to sample the food. It was one of those food samples. And so I was pretty good at that. And so people would come up afterwards and say, "Hey, we'd like to talk to you about coming to our organization."
Mm.
And so that's really how we built most of the business was going out to the SHRM chapters, PMI, Project Management Institute. That's another one that we used. And so we would just go speak in their chapters all over the country and build our business that way.
Okay. And a lot has changed in the world of marketing in the 24 years you've been in business, with the internet and social media and all of that.
Yep.
Has your marketing strategy have you had to change it to kind of integrate what I'll call modern marketing? How
Yeah,
have you changed?
the first big change happened when COVID hit because SHRM and PMI and all those people didn't book speakers because they didn't have meetings in 2020. And it really took a couple of years for training and facilitation for people to get back into meetings. Some it would take them 2, 3, 4 years. So there was
Mm-hmm.
nowhere to go and speak, and now everybody's jammed in on social media and on doing all this stuff online. And so I had a couple clients that we did some stuff for online, but I went and was a real estate agent for about a year and realized, well, that's not really what I want to do. And then the business started coming back. And so then I started reaching back out again. But by that time, AJ, I had a database of over 5,000 names of people who had seen me speak. And so now we market to those folks. And then we also use a I'm not sure service you call it. It's called seamless.ai. And so you go to, it's a website, you go to seamless.ai and you type in what you're looking for. So it might be one that we did recently. I'm looking for all of the financial institutions, and you can say within the state of Texas, in this particular number of employees, this particular revenue base. So you can put those parameters in, and it will give you all of those people in that fit within those parameters with their LinkedIn connection, Facebook, so all their social media connections, their email, their telephone number, their address. So that's been really great for us to now to go do some marketing too. It also helps to update all those 5,000 names that we've had because people don't, a lot of people moved during COVID too, moved
Mm-hmm.
jobs. So that seamless AI has been a really big thing for us because it helps us to keep up with things. It's not a huge investment financially. So for small business people, you got to kind of pick and choose where you
Yep.
spend your money. And then the other thing that we're doing differently is about a year ago, we hired a virtual assistant. And she's really terrific. She's in the Philippines. She's got a marketing background and she can write code. So she does all our social media. She does all of our website updates. I'm writing 2 new books right now, and so she's doing all the editing and things on that. So she has been really wonderful. And you can find a VA so that you can do the stuff that you're good at And so now I'm not trying to do everything myself. I'm
Mhm.
incorporating people on the team, letting them do the things that they're really good at. So I can spend my time doing the things that I enjoy doing, that I'm good at. And they can say, Frank, don't get near the database stuff because you're terrible at that, which is which is
You're
true.
just going to mess it up, right?
I do just mess it up. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the when you find with seamless.ai. So that's it basically you're getting a very specific list of people
Right.
that fit your ideal client profile.
Right.
What do you do with those names?
So we download those into our database, and so Joey is our virtual assistant. Joey will download those into our database, and then so for example, with financial institutions in Texas, so we create a campaign just for those people, and so we create emails just for those people. Right. We create ebooks just for those people so that we have a giveaway. And so we'll create a campaign or a funnel, if you will, to
Mhm.
get people interested. And I read a book by Daniel Priestley called Key Person of Influence. And he talked about, most entrepreneurs like us, we think, oh, well, if, I have to go book as much business as I can. And what he talks about is you have to go create demand. And so to become a key person of influence and to put everything you can out there for free, right? Videos and white papers and ebooks and things like that. So that's what we're doing is we're recording every week. I've got 24 years worth of content, but it's just been sitting on my computer. Well, it's not doing anybody good there. So we're putting things out week by week. We're sharing these ebooks, giving them to people. And so we're starting to notice more people calling or emailing and saying, hey, I read your ebook, or hey, I saw your name. It's funny, AJ. Sometimes people say, oh, I saw your name somewhere, but I can't remember where. Right. Which is fine with me. Like, if you can remember, great. If you can't, that's fine too. Um, but that way they're already kind of experienced with our style and what we can do. And I don't call myself normal. Um, my first book was called Embrace Your Freakness. And so that tells you a little bit. I'm a little bit of an odd duck, is how some people would describe it, because I believe that, you've got to have fun and be serious at the same time to grow. And so I tell people I'm going to make you comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time, and I'm really good at doing that. And but as we do that together, we'll bond when we laugh and have fun. And then I'll challenge you to do things that you're not really sure you can do. And so that can start with some of the ebooks, some of the videos, and whatnot. And so we create these campaigns where we will give away specific things. We're adding to our YouTube channel all the time. And Daniel Priestley says, you want people to be able to go watch 7 hours, consume 7 hours of your content. That's how you're
Mm.
going to develop a relationship with them digitally. So that's what we're kind of jumping into now. That's a lot different. And so it's an experience trying to record stuff and figuring out what do I want the video to look like and all these things I hadn't really thought about much.
Right. And you're seeing success.
We are. We're still in the transition stage, so we're still getting to it. We're also doing a thing called Score app, which I know you're familiar with, and so we're
Yep.
getting just in the infancy stages with that. But I'm excited because we are starting to see a little bit more people responding to us and open to calls and some of those things. So I think, I'm sure it will take a little bit of time, but I feel more confident getting my materials out there because it's really now just where I could go be in front of a group of people before COVID. This is doing kind of the same thing after COVID. And so it's a whole new world, and I'm just trying to embrace it.
Are you still doing the in-person workshops?
I've done a couple of them, and they just aren't the same anymore. And I don't know if it's me, it's not as effective. I don't know if it's the organizations that aren't as effective. So I really have really, if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, we want you to come speak to our group," I will do that. But I'm not soliciting nearly as much as I used to. So I'm
Mhm.
much more particular about where I'm going to go and who's going to be there. And then there's a lot more opportunity online. So a lot of these groups are doing a lot more webinars and things like that, where you don't, I mean, just like this podcast, right? You don't have to leave your office. You can do everything from home.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, pandemic fundamentally changed the way we do business
Yes.
and the way we market. I mean, the
Yes.
internet and social media had already started that than the pandemic, and you know, all of us who were maybe a little uncomfortable with Zoom or the other virtual video platforms have gotten a lot more comfortable with it. We've had to.
Yeah. We haven't really had a choice, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But I
Yeah.
think too, I think the world has changed, AJ, in that today you really have to know who you are and what you offer and who your tribe is. And so really what I've learned, I say for the first time, but I'm sure I've learned it in the past, but it really is making more of an impact on me now. And it's put your materials out there, right? Whatever you do as an entrepreneur, whatever you do, let people know what you do and how you do it. And there's going to be people who are attracted to you because you're aligned from a values perspective. And so that's your tribe. And so as I am more comfortable with who I am, and I'm better able to express that, as I put more of my materials out there, my tribe will find me, right? Because there's people out there looking for your services and my services and all these entrepreneurs that are getting going with their own thing. There's people out there looking for you, but they don't know you exist. So the more you can get out there and don't expect it to happen overnight. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned.
Yes. Yes. That is a really important thing to remember is don't expect it to happen overnight. I want to go back to what you just said. You know who you are, what you do, and who your tribe is.
Right.
Is that and which totally completely aligns with I mean, I use different wording, but it's like who, we have to know who we are and what we offer.
Right.
We also have to have a really clear definition of who our ideal client is, and not in general terms, but very specifically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how has that definition? Oh, and then so I just thoughts there. So and then because you know who you are and you know what you do well and what you offer your tribe, then that tribe will be attracted to you.
Right. Right. Like there's certain audiences, like I was in Texas last week with an audience, and that's my tribe. And so I was able to help them a lot. We had a lot of fun. I was able to challenge people because we're aligned with where we're trying to get to in life and how we want to get there. And so it's easy to build trust. And I think that's a big thing. When you're out there, people want to know, can I trust you? And so, but when you find that tribe, it's easy. I find it's easier to build trust with them faster. And then once you get in, my philosophy has always been once I get into an organization, now how can I move around within that organization? So
Okay.
my top five clients, I've had all five for over 15 years. And again, which is not normal in our industry. But once you get in, you can see, oh gosh, this company has 32 different divisions. I'm only in one. Okay, well, now I can go meet people. And so now you can ask for referrals. Hey, who else in the organization can you introduce me to? Right? Or word gets out about, oh, hey, you spoke to this part of our company. We'd like to talk to you about doing something for us. And so I think once you get in someplace where you know that you fit, they're your tribe, don't be afraid to say, hey, who else in your organization can I help? Who else needs what I can help you all with? And I think sometimes I see entrepreneurs, me included, get into the business and we're afraid to ask for the sale because we're afraid we're going to offend somebody.
Mhm.
But just think about it. When you go to the grocery store, you're not, you don't get offended because eggs have gone up. You might get angry, but you're still going to buy them, right? You don't get angry when other people ask you, hey, will you pay for those eggs? That's an expectation. And so people expect to pay you for your services. And if you believe in that, then they'll believe in that. And again, that's so you got to trust yourself first and then build that trust with your tribe.
Early on, did you have problems with the making the offer confidently and
Well, I
asking
think
for basically?
at first I was so cheap it wasn't I didn't have any trouble with it. But then I got a business coach and he said double your fee. And I had to take a big gulp. And he said, you know, you need to see what your competitors are getting paid because you're not getting paid what they are, and you're just as good. And so he actually kind of gave me a lashing for a while, and so then I started asking for more. And you know, funny thing, AJ, people would pay it, but they're not gonna. If you offer yourself too cheap, they're not gonna offer more money.
Right.
I've only had that
They
happen
may
one time.
they may say no because you're too cheap, but they're
Right,
not going to offer. They're not going to say, well, you're really worth double that. They're going to say, well, heck, if he doesn't value it, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take advantage of him.
right. Or we're not going to use you. We're not going to use you at all because you don't even value yourself. So what are you gonna? How are you gonna help our people build their value?
So when you doubled your with that business coach, when you doubled your fees, what how did you screw up the courage to do that? And then what was the outcome when you double your fees?
Um, I got tired of him yelling at me. And he would tell you he didn't yell at me, he was just stern. But he was very influential, and I thought, well, I'm paying this person a lot of money to give me this advice. Maybe I should follow it. And so I remember trying it the first time and getting no pushback. And I thought, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And there really hasn't been much pushback, and I think I could probably go higher even still. I have a couple of companies that said, well, that did give me some pushback. But the funny thing is those were companies who I thought, why am I doing business with you in the first place? Like we're not even
Mm-hmm.
aligned. And so that kind of, when they said, no, we're not going to pay you more, I just said, okay, that's fine. Maybe we don't need to work together. And because I do think too, there are clients you have that you shouldn't, right? But we get worried about, am I going to have enough money to make ends meet and to make payroll or whatever? And so we take on clients, and every time you go do work for that client, you're miserable. And so it helped me to, you know, I didn't have to have as many clients for the same revenue. I could do it with fewer. The other thing is it helped me feel much better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was big. And then I talked to a couple of my clients and they said, well, we actually think that we figured you'd be charging more than you're charging. So when you raised the price, we weren't surprised.
Oh, that's good feedback.
Yeah.
And since then, do you consistently raise your fees over, do you have a pricing increase strategy?
I wish I was that organized because that's what I think you probably should do. I'm not. So I have different levels of service that I offer. And so those I look at each year and I think, okay, what do I need to charge for those? But that it's another thing that I learned is when you do a proposal for someone, offer them three packages. So you have a low end, a medium, and a high end. And by offering three different levels, people get to feel like they're in control, right? And it's like they get to determine how much they want to spend. Any of the three, they will get good results. They'll get all of my best. But the deluxe package, they're just going to get more options, right? So again, it's like buying a car. You can buy a car with no added features, some added features, or you can buy the one with that's loaded with everything. And I think different things for different people. So I have some clients who will never pick the most expensive, and I have some clients that will only pick the most expensive. And so I think it kind of balances out, but I've just found that's a way to empower people. And then you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, am I too expensive? Because you've given them three different options.
Right, right. I like that. Makes sense. I want to, you talked about hiring a business coach. Have you had a coach throughout your career, or was that a one-time thing?
I've had several different coaches, so it just kind of depends on how things are going. I don't have one right now. Um, but I've hired different coaches to do different things. This last coach I had, I wanted somebody who was going to be very um, forceful, type A, if you will, who is and who is also going to be a really good business person and to help me from that perspective. I'm really good at what I do, and so he was not going to help me with what I do because I'm better at that than he is. But where he was good was he was really good at how do you build a foundational business. And so like one of the things is how do you feel like how do you ask for more money? And so it's just some of those different processes to run a business more effectively. He had the expertise in those. And so I hired him just for that. In the speaking and training business, a lot of times people hire a speaking coach, right, to help you speak better. Well, that's great because if you're a speaker and you're not any good, doesn't matter how good a business person you are, you're not going to ever get asked back. So I think, excuse me, as you're thinking about hiring a business coach, think about what do I want them to help me to do? And then I called around several people, some friends of mine, and said, who do you know that could do this, this, and this? And so this came from a friend of mine who's a therapist and a coach. And she said, he's really good, but he's very direct. And she was right on both accounts.
Right. So, would you advise a self-employed consultant who's early in the stages, within the first couple years, let's say, would you recommend that they get a business coach or a mentor? Or is that something that comes later in the process?
I think it depends. Every situation's different. I think too, when I first got started, I had several mentors. And so I think mentors are great, and I think they're different from coaches. So the mentors I had worked for free. They were people who were older than me, more experienced than me. And in my first book, Embrace Your Freakness, we introduced a concept. We didn't create it. It was in the book, but it's one I used that a friend of mine turned me on to called Your Board of Directors. And so he said, think about the different areas of your life. So you've got the financial area of your life, you've got the stage area, you've got to be on stage, right? You've got your business development area of life, you've got your family, you've got your faith. So all those different areas of life, he said, why not have a mentor in each of those areas? So, for example, for about 20 years, my financial advisor, my financial mentor, was a good friend of mine who was also my CPA for many years. And financially, she was brilliant. And so she helped me with a lot of financial decisions and that type of thing. And then to help me with my stage presence, I had a completely different person who wasn't very good with his money, but he was great on stage. And so I would just have conversations with them. I tried to have at least one conversation a week with one of my mentors. I had five. And that just kind of keeps you moving forward and thinking about where am I going. But it also, you can use a mentor to help hold you accountable. It wasn't until I'd been in the business probably 10 years that I hired my first coach and somebody who I would sit down and meet with on a regular basis. So my first coach I had for, gosh, 3 or 4 years. And he helped me go from being a solopreneur to how do you now add people to your team. And So we talked about, should you have an employee? Should you have contract people? How do you pay them? Do you pay them by the hour? Do you pay them by the job? And so just to think through some of those things and how can you get creative? And I think that's a big change is when I first got started, it was people would hire employees. And that's not the way that I think I've experienced that millennials and Gen Z want to work. You know, a lot of them are more contract basis. So we have a CFO now who is all contract based. And so we
Mm,
pay him by the work that he does. And our VA is on a contract basis, and we pay her for doing specific things. So I think that piece has changed, but it's knowing, okay, where do I need help? And then going and finding somebody to do that. But I would definitely suggest that you find some mentors early and utilize them and all the knowledge that they have that they'll be willing to share with you.
okay. Be very intentional about seeking out mentors.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Well, while we're on the topic of well, I'm going to ask the advice question in a moment, but what would you do differently with all the knowledge that you have now? What would you do differently if you could go back to the beginning with all the knowledge you have now?
I think the biggest thing for me, AJ, is I would be more confident.
Okay.
And I think your decisions are different when you're confident. I think you're more bold when you're confident. I think you come across to your prospects and your customers differently when you're confident. And people can tell when you're not confident, and people can tell, oh, Frank doesn't really believe in himself. He's kind of timid. And so I think that would be the biggest difference because as I've grown and become more confident in myself, my business has grown. And I wish I could say, oh, well, I just am better at marketing. I still am not very good at marketing. I don't do it very well or very much, but I'm a lot more confident. And so now I'm not afraid to ask people, hey, who do you know that I could help? You know, who could you introduce me to? When I'm in front of a group or just meeting somebody on for coffee or lunch, or you meet somebody sitting on the airplane, right? Just that confidence shows. And I think people are more willing to buy things from people who are confident. So if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm a business coach, but you come across as weak and timid. Well, who wants a weak and timid business coach? And one of the things that I teach people that I coach in presentation skills is if you come across on stage and you speak softly, I don't care if you're Albert Einstein, people won't respect you or think that you know what you're talking about unless you speak loudly. So I coach people all the time, talk twice as loud as you normally would, because that's how you're going to sound more confident. So merely speaking louder changes people's perception about you. It
Okay.
sounds ridiculous, but it's absolutely true.
Right. It's a psychological thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do to build your confidence?
Gosh, that could be a whole nother podcast. Um, That's what I'm writing my next book. It's called Embracing My Freakness. So the first one was Embracing Your Freakness. And it all stemmed from I met Patch Adams at the airport, but I didn't know it was Patch Adams for a long time. And what Patch taught me was everybody is designed for something specific in their life and to figure out what that is and then to leave people better than you found them. And sorry, we're getting a little barking. So this new book is what I've learned over the past 5 years is I've really dug in and figured out what makes me tick deep down inside. And, it used to be that I had a mindset of things happen to you, but now I believe that things happen for you. And so I think a lot of times when we get started as entrepreneurs, we think, oh, this was bad. It happened to me. Well, sit back a second and reframe it. That happened to you, but there's a lot of benefits from it. You may not know it while you're going through it, but think of all the things in your life that you look back on now and you think, man, I am so glad that happened. And so if you just have that perspective up front, so that's helped me to have a lot more confidence in myself, just knowing I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, and I'm okay with that. And so it's just, I've started a routine every morning now, and you and I started, we did some deep breathing exercises, right? I wake up every morning and I do my meditation and I have kind of my scripts that I go through and talk to myself and remind myself of what my purpose is and just get in the right headspace before I go interact with the world. And so I think just kind of getting some of those things, getting that foundation, if you will, is so vitally important before you go and try to help somebody else.
I love that. Tell me more about that morning routine. Because I'm a big advocate of, you know, of the morning routine and how important that first hour of your morning is for mindset.
So I get up, and the first thing that I do is I go through, I call it my morning focus. And so there's 8 things on there. And so I have it scripted. I have it on every one of my computers. I have it on my bathroom mirror. I have it on the refrigerator. The kids think I'm crazy. But I just start with, so I do what's called an upward spiral. And so one of the first things that I do is I wake up and brush my teeth. And then I say, okay, how do I want to show up today? And then I ask myself, what am I feeling today? And so an upward spiral is something, we all know what a downward spiral is where you feel bad and then you make yourself feel worse. Well, I
Mhm.
thought, if I'm feeling bad, why not make myself feel better? Why not spiral up instead of spiraling down? And so I asked myself, how am I feeling? Well, when I first started this, AJ, every morning it was, well, I'm feeling guilty or shameful or despondent or angry, a lot of anger. And since I've started doing this and being more intentional, now every morning I wake up, like this morning I woke up and I was enthusiastic, right? And optimistic was the big one that jumped out at me. And so I'm much more in tune with my own emotions and feelings. And then once I identify that, then I go to what am I grateful for? I want to name at least 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then I believe that I live more in what's called 5D, right? Which is when you connect to the universe without being too esoteric for some folks. You might call it spirituality or whatever you call it. I call it living in 5D. And so I was reading a book of a physicist of all people, and she talked about how you have energy out in the universe that's there just for you and that encourages you every day. And so I call it my 5D love bunch. And so I connect with them every morning and give them just, thank you for being there for me. And it's really weird because I get a charge of energy every time I connect to them. And then I just ask myself, okay, how do you want to show up today? And how are you going to impact people? My life purpose is to live in love and joy in that energetic state. And so how are you going to put that out to the world today? Talking with AJ on her podcast, the different appointments that you have, just going to the grocery store. And it goes back to what Patch Adams said. He said, just leave people better than you found them. And if you make that kind of a mantra, all right, everybody I impact, I want to leave them better than I found them. It gets things pretty simple. And then I visualize my future. Where do I want today to look like? What do I want the next year to look like? Where do I want 3 years and 5 years to look like? And just spend a few minutes visualizing that. And then I'm ready to go and then get my son's usually up by that time. And then we go and feed the dogs and start our morning routine with the kids.
Love it. Love it. And how long have you been doing this routine?
About 2 years.
And what difference has it made in your life and your business?
Um, Gosh, I'm much more intentional. Uh, I was diagnosed with ADD in my 50s, and it's really helped me to focus more. It's helped me to give myself grace more. There's just some days where you just don't have it. right? Like last week, I was sick and I didn't have a voice, which when you're a speaker can be detrimental. So I had to give myself grace and I've never had that happen. And the whole time I've ever been doing this, and I just said, "Oh, you know what? You're going to have to take care of yourself." So it's really helped me to take care of myself more. And I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to not do that. We burn the candle at both ends and maybe in the middle at the same time. And so it's really helped me to slow down, appreciate what I have. And before I started doing this, I was always angry and I was always bitter. I was always in a low level emotional state, whether it was anger or depression or fear, a lot of fear, driven by fear, victim mindset my whole life. And then, but ever since I've started doing this, that I've switched from victim mindset to creative love mindset, right? So things don't happen to me, they happen for me. And it's amazing just by making that switch. But you got to program it every day. And then I do a focus two at lunch. So as soon as we finish our recording, I'll go do a focus two. And what am I grateful for, right? Getting to spend some time with you and that. And then I do it again right before I go to bed. And in bed, it's a little bit different. I do a will meeting, wins, improvements, lessons learned, right? So I still do the gratitude piece, but it's like, okay, what wins did I have today? What improvements did I make or do I want to make? And what lessons did I learn today? And how can that help me in the future? So you plant
I
all that
love that acronym.
subconscious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So will wins,
Improvements.
improvements, lessons learned.
Yep.
That's a great acronym. I love that acronym.
It is. I
Yeah.
actually I gave a client an assignment to do an after action review. And he said, "Oh, well, I turned it into a will meeting." And I said, "What's that?" And so I give Randy credit because he created it. And I said, "Can I use it?" And he's like, "Yeah, knock yourself out." And so I give that to all my clients now. I love it. It's been a wonderful tool.
That's great. That's a great way to end the podcast too. So I mean, I have many more questions I would love to ask, but we're at the end of our time. So thank you, Frank, so much. This has been a really enjoyable podcast, really enjoyable interview with you. So thank you for being my guest today.
Thanks for having me, AJ. I enjoyed it too. So I'm just going to ask you one thing. What's one win that you experienced today?
One win. Oh, that's a really good question. One win is I journaled. I journaling has been always been a really important part of my morning routine, and I have kind of gotten a little out of it over the last couple months. And I journaled this morning, in fact, right before the interview. And it that was a big win, is to journal and to really be honest. I think the reason I haven't been journaling is I haven't been wanting to be honest with myself
Yeah.
about some of the thoughts that are going through my head that I don't necessarily want to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And journaling is the way. I mean, journaling is, it really kind of forces me to acknowledge it. So I've been avoiding it. So it felt really good to get my journal out and my pencil and settle in the sun and enjoy some journaling.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. Now you should celebrate that.
Yes, celebrate. Oh, yes. I love your emphasis on celebrate. I am in the positive intelligence program, positive intelligence coach. And one of the really important things that they talk about, and you can relate to this, is how important it is for us to celebrate even the little tiny stuff.
Yep.
Even catching yourself thinking, that life is happening to me. If you catch it and say life is happening for me, well, that's worth celebrating. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
instead of, my tendency would be not to celebrate that I journaled today, but to, my inner judge would hit me over the head and say, well, it's about effing time. You journaled, you haven't been doing it all these months. Instead of saying, yay, AJ, I journaled today and it felt really good. So that's celebrating. Yes, let's celebrate our days for a couple of seconds here.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. I love that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap on my interview with Frank Keck. What powerful insights Frank had for us about building a successful consulting practice. I hope you're taking away the importance of knowing who you are, what unique value you offer, and finding the confidence to charge what you're worth. The key takeaway I want you to remember is that confidence sells. When you believe in yourself and your services, so will your clients. Here are some actions you can take to put today's episode into practice. 1, try Frank's morning routine approach. Ask yourself how you want to show up today, what you're grateful for, and how you impact others. And especially at the end of the night, implement his will framework: wins, improvements, lessons learned. That's a great framework to review your day and learn from what happened during the day. Second, consider offering free workshops or speaking engagements as a low-risk way for prospects to experience your expertise. And they don't have to be live workshops. You can do webinars right here on Zoom. And third, Frank talked about the importance of creating your personal brand of board of directors. Consider adding me to your board as your business and mindset coach. If that's of interest, book a free exploratory consultation with me. My Calendly link is in the show notes. And finally, if you like today's episode, click subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Then leave me a review on your podcast app or YouTube so other self-employed consultants can learn about the podcast. And finally, head over to ajriedel.com for show notes and other resources to help you grow your consulting practice. Until next time, keep thriving through.